Hey everybody, this is Charlie Turner. I'm delighted to be here to clay and play with you, and I thought I'd do a little bit of a Skinner Blend demystifying with tricks and tips on how to do this a little bit easier so that you're not quite trimming off too much clay and having distortion problems, and how to do it slowly and work it so that you're not wasting clay. Alright, so I'm just going to show you something. First off, on most pasta machines, what you have is the blade across the top, and I'm going to say at the top of that blade right there, it's about 5.5 inches in length. So the first thing to help you so that you're not making more than you need to do to make, or making it hard to get it through your pasta machine, what I do is I have a mat here that measures what I'm doing, and I end up going, okay, I don't want a cane or to start the Skinner Blend with more than 5.5 inches wide, because then you're squinching and scrushing and you end up cutting off pieces and it's just a pain in the neck. So what I do is, on the average, I'll take this like this and go, okay, I want to have it no wider than 5.5 inches. So I'm just going to come up here like this. I try to go for about 4.5, 5 at the most, because then you're still starting to press. It's kind of tough to do this in front of the machine, or in front of the camera, but we'll get there. Alright, so I put my pieces together, and notice they are not perfect, and they don't have to be perfect. Any pieces that I trim off, I love beautiful red brown. Any pieces that I end up trimming off, what I'll end up doing is saving that and mix the color. You know, take a little of this red and a little of the brown and just mix it together, and I have a new brown red color. So I'm going to back this up just a little so you can see. Now the length on this right now is, my width is only about 3 inches, so this is going to be a long skinny one. I could have gone wider, but I didn't. And if you notice, I didn't bring the color up on either end too close. Now if you think that's too long, you always trim it off and mix the color, but I'm going to start with that just to show you the simplicity of doing this the right way. Now I push down where the seam is, I overlapped the clay just a little bit and push it down, and then you can take your roller and flatten it a little bit so it's going to go through the pasta machine the way you want it to. Now at this stage in the game, you can do one of two things. You can take this sheet and roll it through so you don't have too much thickness where the seam connects, or you can just go, okay, let's go with this. So this is how it works to save yourself clay. Right now, if you notice on the bottom, I'm matching up as best I can, and then my favorite little trick is my thumbs. That's right, the thumbs. If it's a little uneven, push up the clay. So now we're going to push it through the pasta machine. So as you notice, I put them together, the brown and the brown, top to top, and I folded it in half. So I've got red on one side. This is how you start it, red on one side and the brown on the other side. And I'm going to put the Skinner Blend in the machine where I folded it. That's how you start. So my first pass on the pasta machine, and you'll see what this looks like. Now see, you flip it over. It doesn't matter if I flipped it one way or the other. It's just showing where the seams are. So this is where you go, okay, see the ends right here? They're not really totally matching up, and it's not square. What you do is you square it up as best you can. Take your time. The faster you go, the more off-centered it gets, the more wasted clay. So again, if I could just kind of show you, I'm pushing up, almost making a curl, but not quite, pushing up on the clay. Remember, the clay is very, very, very flexible. So I'm just pushing it. Now, one of my pain in the neck things whenever I'm doing a Skinner Blend is I hate all the ragged edges. So what I'll end up doing, and again, I'm taking my time, is pushing against the ragged edges so they're in. So what happens is if you get too many ragged edges, see this piece and how ragged it is? Get too many ragged edges, you start getting little bits of clay that breaks off, and it gets attached like that right there to your sheet. So I usually just scrape them off with my fingernail and put that aside. So now what I'm going to do is blend. And I'm going to keep putting it through the pasta machine. Okay, fold it in half. Now if you look very carefully, you see where this is not matching up on this corner or this corner. And you're going, it's going to be a pain because you think that you're going to end up having a lot of ragged or a lot of leftover clay. So this is where you play, I'm going to fix this. Again, what I'm doing is I'm pushing it down and pushing it up and squaring it. So it looks pretty square. The other thing I might do is just pound it just a little bit. Another thing is, if you notice right here is a lot of air pocket. Press that down, keep your air pocket to a minimum, because that way you don't get a lot of clay or air in your clay when you're rolling out a sheet. Excuse me, getting over a bad cold here. So if you notice, I'm staying pretty darn square, but I'm manipulating it. I'm not trying to hustle this through the machine really fast. Through the pasta machine again, fold it, and there we go. We got the same issue. Now, a lot of people are saying the reason that you have this issue is one clay is softer than the other. I think it's kind of more of the, I may be wrong, but some of the pressure on the pasta machine. So if this corner, if you see the corners and they're kind of starting to shrink up to go in this direction in a scoop, what you do is, again, you push on it on the bottom, get your air out on the top, and replay with it. Put it back together into a square. See how I'm putting it back together? It's going back into a square. I might tap it down a little bit, and I can see, it's tough to see through the camera and see what I'm doing here. Get that crumb out of there because I don't want to have a weird color. Watch your crumbs, again, the raw edges, because you can get a beautiful blend going, and all of a sudden, like on this one, all of a sudden you might have a piece, a little tiny piece of bright red in the middle of it because you didn't wipe out your pasta machine or watch for the crumbs. I'll go through halfway through a Skinner blend and I will wipe the table off completely, because if you see in my fingers, I'm getting crumbs. Okay, so this is basically, you're doing it again. You're going to get all the air out of it, straighten it up nicely, try to keep it figured the way you want it, and then through the pasta machine. So again, watch, see that now this is where I was talking about how it curls. We're starting to get the blend, it's starting to work, and see the curl. Now if it gets really, really, really bad, you can trim it off. And remember, all these lovely little scraps can be mixed into a color you just didn't even know you had. And once they're blended, I mean, it'll match up with whatever Skinner blend that you have. So right now I am, again, straightening it up. See, it's almost like a little curl. A little air pocket there. Fixing it and bringing it back down and folding it. So one of the biggest tricks is try to remember not to make this bottom part that's going into your pasta machine, no matter which way you do it, is not more than 5.5 inches, because then you're going to have to squish up all the extra clay. And that can be the greatest distortion problem that you have as far as wasting clay and fighting with it through the pasta machine. So at this stage in the game, I am keeping it level and straight as much as possible. It is pretty tough to see this, to do this through the camera, but take a look at my clay. Keep pushing on the edges and softening them up so that they'll stop doing the breaking and the little crumbs. And then about halfway through this, I grab and I use Love's baby wipes, because they don't have any of that extra lint on them. And I will wipe down the surface of my table. Just take it and wipe it down really good. Or a dry paper towel will do the same thing. Wipe off the crumbs. Because once you start getting your blend, you don't want little pieces in there. So that's how you keep your Skinner blend without using so much waste to help stop it from being absolutely crooked, which, you know, like this one's starting to distort, this one on the bottom right here. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to pull it out, push it up with my thumb, and get it to look fairly even. Remember, you can stretch this clay. It's not going to hurt it. Stretch it and pull it. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes people say that you get one clay that's a little bit softer. Sometimes it's really noticeable. Other times it's not that noticeable. But if you look, as I'm manipulating the edges and pulling a little at the top, straightening it out, and straightening out again, you're going to find that I more or less squared that right back up again. So look at the line on the bottom. And then fold it in half. And if it's off a little bit, if I'm off again a little bit, see, I see a little tiny piece coming in there. I will straighten it up with my thumbs and push on it, get all the air out. So, my tips and tricks of today, most important thing is watch the length of the bottom of your cane, or the part you're going to be feeding through the machine. Take your time, straighten it up. Don't try to rush through it. If you're going to rush through it or you're a fast project, it's going to come out all wonky on you. You know, it's going to come out with raw edges, or edges that are just scooped off. And if you look at these, now granted, I have not gone through about 20 lines. You do this about 20 times or so until your blend starts working really well. I didn't want to make this video too long because I wanted to do a new one again for my group. So that's how this works. You have a nice, pretty much straight cane. Don't be afraid to squish and play with the clay to get your Skinner blend. Have a great afternoon, and thanks for watching. And please give me a like if you like this, if it helped at all. Bye now.